What is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the Papi Recap with G Play 7. I am your host, G Play 7. You can call me G, you can call me Papi. You can also catch me on Twitch streaming. Stream a lot of games right now. We're doing the Resident Evil series. But yeah, so we're gonna cover now season 2 of Stranger Things, part 1, which is gonna be episodes 1 through 4. Those are gonna be Madmax, Trick or Treat Freak, the Pollywog, and Will the Wise. So season 1 we left on an emotional note. Season 1 we left with 11 sacrificing herself. She, the gang try to get back to normal as much as possible, but we're gonna find out what repercussions, what waves her sacrifice did, and all the discoveries, what they led to, as far as like every character, they were left affected after. So this takes place in October 28th, 1984. That's where we start the events and Stranger Things 2, season 2. And so, like I said, first chapter is Madmax, and we start with a simple robbery, or what looks like a robbery, in Pittsburgh. Not even in Hawkins, Indiana, or anything. But this is where we get introduced to Callie. And at first, you're like, all right, who's this? How is this involved, or related to everybody else, or like this is going to be a different story, different characters. So then they're being chased by the cops. They're in this badass car scene, and they reach a tunnel, and they're all talking to Callie. They're like, "Yo, it's time, do it." So all of a sudden, the tunnel that they went into starts crashing, and the driver just pulls. She's like, "Oh my god!" When he pulls over, though, a bunch of other cars, like cop cars, crash into each other. But his partner goes like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "Well, the tunnel crashed." And then like he gets out of the car, the tunnel's normal. All of a sudden, we go back to Callie. Got a little bit of a nosebleed and the number 8 on her wrist. Ooh, okay. But then we go back to Hawkins, Indiana, and we see Dustin at home searching for money. He's like literally scrambling, looking between couch pillows, cushions, everything. Same thing over at the Wheeler's house. Mike is just looking for change. He even goes into Nancy's piggy bank and he just grabs a bunch of money. She's like, "I'm gonna kill you." So they all like basically gather and they decide to see how much money they have. Or they're gonna go to the arcade, and so they all meet at the arcade and they play Dragon Slayer, where they lose, but they also find out that all their high scores have been beaten by a Madmax. So they all start losing their shit because it's like they work so hard to make sure that their names are the tops on every machine, and then now all of a sudden Madmax is on every machine. So as that's happening, all of a sudden Will has a vision, and he is led outside. He finds himself in the Upside Down. He sees the Upside Down, and he's literally on a panic attack, like on the verge of a panic attack. Like everything, the sky's closing on him. Everything's more like he feels all this pressure coming on, and then Mike finds him. He's like, "Will, are you okay?" So then we get introduced to Murray. Love Murray, bro. He's like one of those conspiracy theories that you just love because of the fact that he's not like I mean, don't get me wrong. He's very eccentric. He's very, but he's also very smart and he's very confident. It's like he has like this cool persona, and then he also has this loony persona. And it's like you put them together. It's like Bugs Bunny, basically. That's the best way to describe it. It's like Bugs Bunny, which he's funny. He's also in like Step Brothers. The actor who plays Murray, he's also in like Step Brothers, and like there's like so many things that he did in an interview where he talks about so many things that he did that were not scripted. That they just told him like, do this, see if you can get Mark Wahlberg to crack. So like, you can see that this dude is really really funny. So then we get introduced to Murray, who's rushing Hopper to talk about something at the police station, and then he basically starts talking about Russian theories, Russian spies, and stuff like that, and like everybody, like all the cops, just start laughing at him and making fun of him. But then like he starts talking about a girl using psychic powers, and then Hopper's like, okay, let's go. Let's go to my office. And, he tells everything, but Hopper, of course, is just realized my lights are. This is better. This is better. Hopper realizes that, like, he can't really entertain him too much because otherwise, like he's gonna give information that he already signed paperwork to not disclose. So then we go back to the school, and at the school we have Steve and Nancy who are going over paperwork for Steve and his college applications. So we're going over college applications and Steve's plans for the future. Then we get introduced to Bad Boy Billy. Bad Boy Billy. Everybody's dream crush in the show. And in passing, we see his sister Max, who is also introduced to the boys in class. And then they start like Max and Madmax, Max. They have to be connected. So we also find out that people like the kids are being mean to Will. They're calling him Zombie Boy. They start leaving notes and like drawings and stuff like that of him in his locker. Then Jonathan and Nancy, they're talking about going to the party, one of the party that either Steve or somebody was having. I think it was Steve. No, it was somebody else. Sorry. And like I said, the boys are trying to figure out if Max is Madmax. Then we get introduced to Bob, who is Joyce's boyfriend, and who's also Samwise Gamgee. So he's played by Sean Astin, and then at the same time that those events are happening, you got Hopper being called to a farm where he is being told that there's a farm war happening. They're poisoning each other's crops, but Hopper feels like there's that doesn't feel right. Like he's like, you were telling me that he came and poisoned all of this. So he he takes notes of it, and he obviously like keeps in mind, but at the same time he dismisses it. He's like, I'll follow up leads and stuff like that, but dude, there's no way. There's no way. So then Will gets picked up by Joyce at school, where he gets taken in to do some tests at Hawkins Laboratory, which is now being run by same company but not the same people. And so they know everything that happened in season 1. They know all the events about him being in the Upside Down, but like now they're friends. They're better people. And so he describes his visions in the Upside Down. He talks about like the sky, like the presence that he feels in the sky, like closing in on him, and like it made him feel the intent of, like, to kill. And it's not just him, like, doesn't want to kill him, it just feels murderous. So the doctor just makes it seem like it's nothing bad, it's normal, it's, like, veterans with PTSD, it's just, his body adjusting to being back to normal and stuff. And so he reassures them that, uh, you know, the people who ran the laboratory in season one, like, they're gone. He says that, hey, season one, they're done. We're not the same people. Okay, this is season two. Worry about us. So then, Dr. Owens, that's his name, Dr. Sam Owens, he goes down to the area where the gate was open in season one. And we find out that they're actually, like, the breach never closed, but they're trying to keep it in control, as best as they can. They're trying to keep it in control, so they're torching it. They're literally using flamethrowers to, like, this is like kind of like spreading like vines. And so what they do is they just torch the vines and, like, try to keep the spread. But then later that night, the lights just go all kinds of crazy everywhere. So the next day, yes, I believe it's the next day, Lucas and Dustin are in the arcade waiting to see if Max gets dropped off because they want to confront her. They want to talk to her about, like, are you Madmax? And then at the Wheeler house, we find that Mike is really having, like, a hard time. Like, he's, like, borderline depressed, going through, like, all the things, all the emotion stuff, like not having help. So as he's gathering toys after being told by his parents, like, I think they're about to do, like, a garage sale or something, and they're like, yo, gather, like, whatever stupid toys you don't need anymore. We're gonna, like, sell them or give them away or something. So he tries to use the radio to contact Elle and see if if she would respond. Which is, yeah. Then Steve and Nancy have dinner with Barb's parents, where, she is just completely struggling with knowing what happened to Barb and not being able to tell them what happened. She's legally not allowed to tell them anymore. Everybody who was involved in the events of season one had to sign some paperwork with the people from Hawkins Laboratory and not tell anybody what happened. So Nancy's having a really tough time. Emotionally, physically, mentally, she's just struggling all around to be able to hold it together when she's around them. So then Dustin gets home after the arcade, and a creature is hurt, but we don't see anything. So then Will and Jonathan get into a little bit of a tiff because Will's trying to explain that he's tired. He is absolutely dog shit tired of people treating him like he's fragile, and also at the same time the bullies calling him zombie boy. And they have a good conversation, which, they end up having movie night with Bob because Bob is just like, hey, we got, like, these two movies or whatever, let's watch them. So then that same night, Will has a not so fun vision of the Upside Down that, like, it makes even the hairs in the back of his neck, like, stand up. And a figure is, like, seen on the clouds, and it looks kind of like Alien, like the Xenomorph. So then Hopper gets home, which he has some booby traps, and, like, he has, like, this knock and things going on. He goes into his cabin, and we find out that Elle is alive and living with him, by the way. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. That was a good reveal. All of a sudden, he's like leaving booby traps, like, or going through booby traps, and like and all of a sudden, like, the door opens, and there's nobody behind the door. He walks in, and then all of a sudden, she comes out of her room, and they sit down and have dinner. So then we go to chapter 2. So in chapter 2, we are shown it's going to be mostly like filled with flashbacks of the events that led from Elle disintegrating and what happened to her from the events of season 1, the finale, all the way to the events of the present time in season 2. We actually see that she goes into the Upside Down. She finds a gate in the school hallway and comes back to the other side. She comes back to our side. She goes to the Wheelers before she goes into hiding. And, she decides she doesn't want to bring that trouble. So she runs away. She survives by feeding off animals she kills. She'll like grab squirrels or bunnies or whatever. And then she runs into a hunter. And she just knocks the shit out of him and then steals his clothes. So she has like one of those like hats with like I don't know what they're called. The ones with the ears that has like the flap too. And sometimes those flaps, the ear flaps, you can like put them up. I don't know what they're called. And then she ends up finding the food that Hopper has been leaving her. So she starts eating that. Then we go back to the prison, and Elle finds out through calendars and TV, because she's been watching TV, that it's Halloween. And she's like, hey, like, I can go. And then this is where I make another reference to E.T., because she's like, I can get dressed up like a ghost. And so she has a blanket, which is literally what E.T. wore, bro. Like, so like I said, it's like very 70s, 80s, like the vibes and everything is like very like you can, yeah. So Elle is unhappy with living arrangements, but they find compromise. So we find out that Hopper has been teaching her how to speak because she was kept at a lab. So when she came out, she didn't speak a lot, or she didn't understand a lot of words. So Hopper has been giving her a word every day and explaining it to her. So he's like, okay, compromise. That'll be your word for today. And talk about compromise. And so during the day, like, she's just been watching TV, and she's been watching like, romantic stuff and like different kinds of movies and shows and news and all that. So the boys, they are getting ready for Halloween, so they dress up as Ghostbusters, and that's where we get introduced to Erica, which can't spell America without Erica. That's a line from later. But yeah, she's funny as fuck. She is funny as fuck, and she's also a pretty cool character. But she's Lucas's sister. Then they end up being the only ones wearing the costumes for school. They thought everybody was going to be like wearing their costumes for school, and turns out that they were the only ones. So Lucas and Dustin want to approach Max, but they don't know how to, so they freeze. But then after class, they invite her to go trick or treating with them. They're like, "Hey, just so you know, like, what is it?" Lucas says, like, if you want to, like, we'll allow you to join our party. And like Max is like, oh, you're gonna allow me? Like, Max is just like filled with rage, bro. Like, she just snaps at him every fucking time. And Dustin just keeps, or Lucas keeps trying. He's like, no, yeah, And she's like, no, this, no, that. So then, so then Joyce finds the drawings of the figure that from the clouds that Will drew, and she calls Hopper to talk about it, and they start reminiscing about when they were kids, and he's like asking her like how everything is with her and all that. Then Nancy is going through her shit. Like I said, she's just not dealing. She's not doing too well dealing with Barb's death and not being able to actually tell, Barb's parents about what's happening. So Steve tries to comfort her as best as he can, but he just doesn't know. He doesn't understand in a way because like he knows she's hurting. He just doesn't know how to be with her, or doesn't have the capacity to actually be there for her. Um, and I'm not saying like he doesn't have the capacity, like because he's doesn't care. He doesn't have the capacity because I don't think he has the maturity at that time to be able to provide what she needs from him. So then Hopper gets called again and has complaints about more dead crops. And then they find ooze, like a ooze that seems all too familiar to him. So as night descends, like as night falls, Hopper feels like some kind of like something looming over him. And that's when he realizes like it's dark. He forgot to call Elle and give her a heads up that he was gonna be late. Um so he also told her that he was gonna like, bring her candy. So like he's scrambling. There's like this little kid at the farm and he's like, hey, I'll give you $20 for your bucket of candy. He's like, come on, man. And so like they make a deal. He leaves with candy. Max and Billy leave school where they complain about being stuck at Hawkins, and like like she starts saying like, oh, it's not that bad or something like that, and he's like, oh, you fucking like this dump. So they blame each other for it. So we start seeing that they're like a little bit of their relation and the story with them. Then on the way home, they see the boys riding their bikes, and Billy's like, oh, those are your friends. She's like, yo, be careful. And he's like, oh, you care about them? You care about people from this town? And so like he literally just like almost runs them over, and they just veer off. So then Jonathan, Will is getting ready for Halloween. Jonathan gets ready, takes him, like they give him Bob has like a recorder, and so they give him the recorder. Will takes it so that he can record everything, and Jonathan drops him off and decides to go to the party. At the party, Billy's making sure everybody knows who he is. Nancy decides to embrace it in a spiteful way, and she decides to drink a lot, which worries Steve. And, Joyce is at home struggling with her separation from Will, being worried about him and like how he's doing. Mike, the boys run into Max, who scares them. She's wearing a mask. I can't remember what it is, and she scares them, and they're like, "Oh!" And then like she's like, oh, "I guess I'll join." And Mike doesn't feel too good about it. He's not sure about her joining the party, so that kind of throws the mood off for him. So he kind of sticks with Will, and Will at the same time starts having another vision of the Upside Down. He's facing the creature, and then he decides to run away, and Mike finds him. Like he's like balled up on the floor somewhere. He drops the camera, like the camera records him, sees him, and everything. Then on the way home, Will tries to explain to Mike what's been happening and what he's been experiencing, and Mike tells him that he still sees Elle and tries to calm him down by relating to him in his own way. Like, so he's, telling him like, I still have visions of Elle, so maybe like that's what's happening, but it's not what's happening. It's not what's happening. So then Jonathan is showing up at the party, and Nancy and Steve get into it, which is funny because as you're watching the scene, Jonathan and Nancy or Steve and Nancy are dancing. They're like having a good time, and then all of a sudden, she just fucking like snaps, just loses her shit, and then Steve is telling her like, "You've had enough to drink." She's like, "I'll decide when I've had enough to drink," and then this is all bullshit. Like you're bullshit, and like everything's bullshit, and we have to pretend that we're in love and all this. And Steve is so butthurt. He's like, "Wait, you don't love me? Are we not in love? Why are you saying that?" And so he just he storms off. He's so mad. He storms off. Jonathan finds her. He takes her home safely. So in her room, I was watching TV, and she uses her powers, and she goes into her her mind space. That's what I'm gonna call it, the mind space. And she sees Mike trying to contact her. He's like, Elle, are you there? Elle, are you there? And we end the chapter with Dustin getting home and hearing the creature again, but this time he finds it. It's like this little like tadpole with hind legs, kind of like frogish, lizardish, reptilian kind of thing in the trash can. So he decides to take it with him. And now we start chapter 3, the Pollywog. So we pick up where we left off with Dustin sneaking into the house with the creature from the trash. And he decides to take his turtle out and put it in there. And he names it D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers because he starts feeding him Three Musketeers, and that's his favorite snack. So then Dustin goes to sleep, and the creature, like the D'Artagnan, just screeches, just goes, which makes no sense. Like how deep in sleep is this motherfucker sleeping? Because it's pretty loud, and it's a very familiar screech. So, the next day, Dustin starts researching reptiles and how to take care of it. Then we go back to the year before, where Elle finally shows herself to Hopper, dropping more food in the box. Hopper takes Elle to the cabin that they currently live at, but it's a fixer upper, like it's an abandoned cabin. So he took her there because he doesn't want her to be found. So they fix the place up, they clean it. He teaches her Morse code so that way he can communicate with her and let her know, like, without using voice and without nobody listening to her or whatever. He can just, probably just sent a warning somewhere or said something really silly, but yeah. And, he also continues her ego addiction. Everybody's enablers when it comes to egos and Elle. So they set rules like, don't open the door unless I knock this way. You're not allowed to leave. No communication with anybody. And he reads her a book about like mom and dad or something like that, and it just makes her question where she came from. And so she starts having questions, asking him. So then in the present, Hopper wakes her up and they talk about Mike and when it will be safe to visit him, which they're argue because he said a few days. In the beginning, he said like a few days, and then she's like, "Well, what's a few days? Because it's been 100 days. What's soon? 300 days? 400 days?" And he's like, "Soon." I can't remember. I think he uses he uses the word of the day as a snap back to her, but I can't remember what the word of the day is. He's like I can't remember what it is, but he's like, yeah. She decides to ignore the rules and she runs away. Where she finds a mother and daughter playing on a swing, and then like she spooks them because she's like, hey, are you okay? Do you need me to call your parents? And then she uses her power to like wrap the swing on the swing set, and then when they turn around, she's gone, and they call the cops. So, uh, Bob Bob's taking Will to school, and they bond over his nightmare. Like he starts talking to him about the nightmares or the visions that he's having a little bit. Bob decides to relate to him about nightmares when he was a kid and how he basically like took control over the nightmares, and he basically faced his fears. So then at school, Max and Lucas are talking about why Will is bullied because Max is like, why do they call him Zombie Boy? Didn't he like wasn't he just found or he was hiding or something? Dustin decides to bring D'Artagnan, which he's gonna start calling Dart, and that's what we're gonna call him, Dart. But he decides to bring him to school, and show the other kids and everything. Billy and Steve start a pissing contest playing basketball, which is interrupted by Nancy. Steve talks to her. And she's like, oh yeah, what else is bullshit now? And she's like, she's just confused. She's like, what happened yesterday? He's like, oh, your other boyfriend took you home. She's like, thanks for taking me home. He's like, oh, it wasn't me. I left. Your other boyfriend took you home. So, he's like, I just need you to tell me that you love me. And, it's like, she's like, I do. But then like Nancy's like left with questions. So she goes to look for Jonathan to ask him what happened. So then, like I said, Dustin's showing everybody Dart, and as soon as like the light gets shown on him, Dart takes off. He screeches, and that's what reminds Will of like what he heard on the Upside Down in one of his visions, where he was like surrounded, and all of a sudden he just kept hearing like a screech. So he puts two and two together and stops from showing Dart to Mr. Clark because he wanted to show Mr. Clark, the science teacher from season 1. He wanted to show him. He's like, I found a species. You think they're gonna name him Dustin something? So then, as it starts growing away, like now it's like grown more back legs or more legs, and it just starts running. So now it's left loose in the school, and everybody just splits up and starts trying to find it. The problem is that at home, Joyce wants to watch the video of Halloween night, and so she gets Bob to help her. And when she does, she notices when Will had his panic attack, but then she notices that there's a lap on the video. Like there's like a white noise kind of like lap. And then as she looks at it, she notices one of the drawings that Will has been having of his visions and his nightmares, where they think that it was fake. She puts it on the TV and then she draws it, and then she puts it on his drawing, and it's the same thing. Crazy. So Hopper finds a lead that connects the farms to Hawkins' labs. And after talking to Jonathan, Nancy finally decides to tell Barb's parents the truth. So then Elle finally makes it to school and decides to look for Mike, where she sees him talking to Max, who's like going on her skateboard, talking to him. She's like circling him on the bike or on the skateboard, and they're in the school gym. And she's like seeing it through the door. She's like, and she gets jealous. She uses her powers and knocks Max off the skateboard. So then Will is in the bathroom where he has another vision, and then it triggers him. He starts running to the field, and when he starts running, he has a vision, like a flashback of his conversation with Bob, where Bob tells him like, "Yo, this isn't real. This you have control." And so he's like, you're not real. But then the cloud and everything just goes into him, and it takes over. So then Will the Weiss, which is the fourth chapter, starts with Will being just standing there on the field, just frozen, eyes roll back and everything. And so they find him. The gang leads her. She was called. So Joyce rushes to the school to find him there. But at the same time, in the Upside Down, the creature is like flowing into him. Like the dark cloud is just slowly going into him. And so Joyce finally tells him, like, hey, they get back to the house, and she's like, tell me what really happened. And, like, I found this and all that. So it's not really, like, revealed a lot yet of what's happening. But, they pass out, and so Jonathan gets home, and, we see Will having some crazy eye moment. He's like, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, he's like this. Elle comes back home where Hopper waits for her and questions her about where she went off and what she did, and he grounds her, takes her egos away, takes the TV away, and, she rebels against him, and he decides to show her the consequences of her actions. So he cuts the cord for the TV. He's like, no more TV, whatever, because she tries to move the TV in the room and all that. Like, oh yeah, boom, snip, and she just explodes. She has an emotional explosion, like all the windows, everything just cracks. So the next morning, Joyce is worried about Will because he starts looking sick. And so she gets a warm bath for him ready, and then he's like, nah, it's too hot. He's like, is it? Like, I checked it, I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, no. And then he starts like he starts saying like he likes it cold. Like, okay. So they start opening all the windows up, all the fans, the AC's on, and Will's just shirtless. He's just like, yes. Ah. So Hopper shows up, and they start talking about everything. He's like, what is happening? And Will tries to explain it as best as he can. Since being taken over by the creature, he starts trying to explain as best as he can what's happening. But he can't really express it. And so Joyce, knowing her boy the way she does, she's like, I know what you can do. Draw it. And so he starts drawing, but he starts drawing it fast. He's like, shh. shh, shh. And so like they're like, what the fuck is this? So they start putting it together slowly, and then they start trying to like figure out what it is. It's a puzzle to them at first, and then they finally figure out that it's all connected. It's just like vines and whatever. So he decides to rush to the farms because the vines give him an idea about what's been happening at the farm. So he decides to rush to the farms. He leaves. So then the gang is still looking for Dart. Steve and Billy are once again having a face off where, he tries to get in his head. And then Mike decides to tell the others what's going on with Will, but he decides to exclude Max because he still doesn't trust her. He doesn't see her as part of the group. So he tells them that they need to find Dart. And then Lucas and Max, Lucas and Max have an argument about her being part of the group or not. She's like, I don't even want to be part of your nerd group. And they all have their D&D roles that they use as part of their group, and it's their argument as to why they're important. And so Billy sees them talking, and that's where you start seeing that Billy's a racist. He's like, why are you talking to the likes of him? Like, he starts like, but it's not like the likes of him as in like, like a nerd. It's like the likes of him. We don't associate with his kind and shit like that. And then after talking to Jonathan and deciding that she does want to tell Barb's parents what happened, Nancy and Jonathan, they go to the park. They call Barb's mom and they meet at the park. And well, they try to meet, but then they start getting nervous. They're like, shit, somebody heard the call. They're here, so they decide to run. And they leave, but they are surrounded by a bunch of undercover agents. Then they get taken to Hawkins' lab, and they get talked to by Will's doctor about not spreading the truth and the consequences. And after they leave, Nancy reveals that it was all a trap. It was all her plan, because she had a tape recorder. She was like, there's only one way that we can make this work. And it's not calling them and telling them. She knew that they were going to be listening to the conversation. So she decided that the best plan of action was to hear it straight from the source, or have a conversation straight from the source. So Dr. Sam has a conversation, Dr. Owens has a conversation with them, and he tells them about like the consequences of actions, how they're not the same lab, how what happened to Barb was unfortunate, but it was something that that couldn't be prevented and stuff like that. And so they decide to leave town with that conversation, because they are like, okay, we got to do something about it. So then, after sulking almost all day, Elle decides to clean the house. So she's like sweeping, and when she's sweeping, she finds a crawl space, and in that crawl space, there's all the records and files that Hopper had on Hawkins' lab and everything. Where she finds the one where it's like about Jane and Terry, and so she's like, huh. So she looks into it, and she goes into her mind space, where she finds Terry, who is repeating the same thing over and over and over. She's like, 3 to the right, 4 to the left, 45, rainbow. And then kind of like stops. So Mike goes to Will's house, where Joyce turns him away. She's like, he's not feeling good. And he asks if it's about the shadow creature, and so she lets him in. Dustin comes home, They actually like found Dart in the bathroom in the school. I forgot to mention they find him and he captures him, and so when he brings him home, he finds Mew Mew, which is his mom's cat, dead, being eaten by Dart, and also there's like skin, um, because Dart molted. He molted his skin, and now he's like super bigger and everything. So now he's starting to resemble a little bit of a Demogorgon. Yeah. And then at the farm, Hopper finally, finds a tunnel with vines from the upside down. So he falls after he's digging. He finally like finds a hole, and he just falls through it. And he finds the vines, and then there's like spores and everything being released. So this season is pretty good. This season, covers a lot more than just. In the first season, we didn't know what we were dealing with. In the second season, we don't know what we're dealing with still, but at the same time, we do. But it's starting to broaden out. Like now, it's bigger. It's bigger than what season 1 was, because season 1 we were dealing with humans and we were dealing with some monsters, but now we're dealing with the monsters, and now we're dealing with visions, and now we're dealing with something that we don't know. So it's just, it's good. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. So season 2 part 2 will be out next week. Then after that, I'm gonna try to make it to where from season 3 on, I may just cover it all in one episode, and then we're gonna figure out what the next show will be. But yeah, dude, it's so fucking nice. It's so fucking good. It's kind of cool rewatching this and noticing some things, and noticing other things and stuff like that. But yeah, I may try to do that. Try to do. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be hard, but yeah, doing like one season per episode, depending on the length of the show and stuff like that. But yes, for everybody, don't forget, I stream on Twitch, so go watch that. Go follow me there as well. You got any shows, any anime, anything you want me to do a recap or talk about, let me know. Put it in the comments. As always, it has been fun. My name is GPlay7. This is the Papi Recap with GPlay7. You can call me G, you can call me Papi, whatever the case may be. Just know that we're going to have some fun, okay? We're going to have some fun. We're getting into it. I'm starting to get the groove of this. Just figuring out how to fit my streaming persona into this. It's a lot, so it's trying to figure it out and keep it to where I don't go all over the place like I normally do when I'm streaming. Just keep it. But love you guys. Until the next time, G out.